If it's currently raining where you are, you can grab a cup of coffee or a cup of tea as we dive into this conversation. So we'll be starting now. Okay. We'll be starting now, and I'll be doing a brief introduction of myself. I'll be your host today. Once again, welcome. My name is Timile Yario, and I am the product marketing specialist here at Ha-Shem Limited, and I'm excited to have everyone today. So a little brief information about me. As a product marketer, I am excited and passionate about using strategic content to drive brand visibility and make real life impact. And as someone who has a keen interest in cybersecurity and digital transformation, I love championing initiatives that help businesses stay safe and secure online in this digital age. Okay, so our agenda for today, of course, we welcomed our guest already for 5 minutes. I will do a brief introduction. I've done a brief introduction about myself, and I will introduce us to the topic and our speakers very soon. And that will take about 40 minutes. Then we'll have question and answer, and then we'll have the closing remark. So before we dive into today's conversation, for people who don't know anything about Ha-Shem, for new people on the call who don't know anything about Ha-Shem, here is a quick background about Ha-Shem. So Ha-Shem has been a trusted IT solution provider for over 21 years now. That's like a century in tech. And, been helping businesses overcome their IT challenges and helping them boost their productivity with the right tech solutions. And that's why we're here today. We specialize in understanding the unique needs of each organization we work with and providing tailored IT solutions to help them optimize how their team work. In short, it is our mission to keep your business running effectively with secure IT solutions. So if you're just hearing about Ha-Shem today for the first time, we are your trusted IT solution provider to ensure that your business and your organization overcome any IT challenge or struggles that you have. So I'll be doing a brief introduction to our speakers today, but before that, I would like... Sorry, please, can you see my screen? You can just react if you can see my screen. Okay. Okay. All right, thank you very much. Okay. All right, thank you very much. So I'll be doing a brief introduction to our speakers, but for this webinar, I have a co-moderator who will also be moderating this conversation with me, and that is Sandra. Sandra, would you like to do a brief introduction and just say hi to our attendees on the call?
Hello, hi, good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible, please?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
someone is
you're audible.
reacting. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sandra Nadozie, and I will be moderating today's session with Timile. I work with Sophos, and we're just here to ensure that we're passing the right message across to cybersecurity enthusiasts like yourself. So sit back, relax, and we promise to make it entertaining and worth your while. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sandra. So I'll just be doing a brief introduction for our speakers today. And one of our speakers is Chris Toller. Chris Toller is a senior sales engineer at Sophos, and he has extensive experience with over 19 years in cybersecurity and more recently in artificial intelligence. He has a strong background in designing and implementing advanced security solutions. He specializes in helping organizations stay ahead of evolving trends through innovative AI-driven technologies. Chris brings a deep understanding of the cybersecurity landscape and a practical approach to applying AI to real-world security challenges. He is also particularly interested in AI, ethics, governance, and advisory in mitigating and staying ahead of the ever-evolving trend landscape in and beyond the shores of East and West Africa. So you can be confident that our speakers today are experts in cybersecurity. So our other speaker is Remy. Remy is a sales engineer at Sophos, And Remy is known as the cybersecurity evangelist within that industry due to our unmatched flair for teaching and educating workforces on the best and safe practices to follow. With over 8 years relevant experience in the industry as a pre-sales analyst in enterprise and data security solution, she's responsible for technical sales engagements, collaborations with implementation engineers, and partners to exceed the customer's expectation and meet the organization business objective. With a mission to mitigate human risk in the cybersecurity industry, she has trained, educated, and equipped well over 4,000 employees and cybersecurity enthusiasts across all sectors in West Africa on updated strategies and how to stay abreast and guarded on the latest trend in the global cyber threat space. So as you can see today that we have a team of experts who is here to address all our cybersecurity questions, give us informative and insightful conversations on cybersecurity. Okay, so I'll be introducing us to the webinar topic for today, which is the cost of non-compliance and not cost of non-compliance, preventing data breaches with Sophos MDR. Sorry, am I still audible? Okay, all right. So like I said, I'm introducing us to the webinar topic, the cost of non-compliance, preventing data breaches with Sophos MDR. So the cost of non-compliance. So the cost of non-compliance can be very, very deadly. I mean, if you're not if you don't comply with the rules, data policies in cybersecurity, it can be very, very deadly. And there are so many organizations that has gone through a lot of cybersecurity attacks and cyber threat due to non-compliance. I'll be giving us a brief example of some companies and organizations that has encountered cyber attacks and cyber breaches due to non-compliance. So in 2018, British Airways suffered a major data breach affecting approximately 400,000 customers. And this was because attackers wanted to get sensitive information about their passengers and because they did not update their software. The UK Information Commissioner of Office fined British Airways for about £20 million for failing to update this software. In 2015, a telecommunication called TalkTalk in the UK also experienced a cyber attack that compromised the personal and banking details of up to 1,057,000 customers. The breach was facilitated by the company's failure to encrypt sensitive data. In Finland in 2020, a psychotherapy provider suffered a data breach where attackers accessed and attempted to extort sensitive patient records. The breach was also attributed to the company's failure to encrypt data and implement security protocols. I could go on and cite examples of companies and organizations who have encountered a cyber attack or a cyber breach because of non-compliance. And these have affected some of these organizations to closing up and, paying huge ransomware and fines for this cyber attack. And that is why we at Ha-Shem, we have partnered with Sophos to bring this conversation to everyone today on the cost of non-compliance, how we can avoid it, how we can avoid cyber breach and cyber attacks. Okay, so I'll just be going through some housekeeping rules before we start the conversation proper. So let's ensure that our mics are muted so that we can enjoy a smooth section. If you have any question why the conversation is going on, please drop them in the chat box. Our team will be actively monitoring and responding. And while the conversation is going on, if there's at any time there's a particular point or question that resonated with you, you can just drop a reaction so that we know that you're following and you're also staying engaged. The webinar is already being recorded and the replay will be reshared when it's available after this webinar. Ensure you have a stable internet connection for the best experience, and then, make sure you follow us and share to keep the conversation going. So right now I'll be calling on my co-moderator, Sandra, if she can just go ahead to ask the first question.
Thank you very much for that, Timile. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm sure it's a cold afternoon if you're in Lagos because it's raining heavily. So I'm sure we'll have a very cozy conversation to, help you with the cold. Okay, there's a Mr. Victor that I cannot hear. Can any other person hear me, please? Just to be sure.
Yes,
Am I
I
audible?
can hear you. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Mr. Victor, maybe someone should please chat him up. He might need to leave and join back. He's having audio problems. Okay, so we'll go straight into it. Today we're discussing the cost of non-compliance and preventing data breaches with Sophos MDR. So, of course, non-compliance mostly is as regards data, right? Compliance, in fact, let me not go into speaking about compliance. I wanted to do that. But since we have experts here as the panelists, I'll go ahead to ask them the question. So the question is, what is a data breach, right? The whole point of complying, or if you don't comply, so you have a data breach, that is when they say you're non-compliant, right? So what is a data breach and how does compliance come in? So Mr. Chris, will you be taking this for us? I hope I'm audible.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, all right, Sandra, am I audible?
Oh, okay. Yes, you are.
All right, so it's important for us to distinguish what data breach means and how does compliance play a role there. So I would define data breach as any security incident that has to do with unauthorized access of confidential data, sensitive data, or protected information. So basically, any security incident that involves the access of data by unauthorized persons is a data breach. Now, for compliance, compliance itself has to do with us using best practices to handle data. So that means we handle data in a way that is protected and in a way that is according to set of regulations and best practices. So if you look at these two, compliance is an ongoing process that helps us try to prevent data breaches, while data breach itself is a security incident that involves data being accessed by unauthorized entities or persons.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Chris. I don't know, Remy, but me, can one of you maybe throw some more light into this? What is a data breach? I mean, we understand that data breach is a security incident, just like Chris rightly said, and compliance basically has to do with just data breach basically has to do with unauthorized access to data, right? So the question now is, what is a data breach to you in your own words? Do you want to throw more light on what a data breach is and how compliance comes in?
Thank you. So for me, I think data breach involves any incidents where protected information is being accessed by unauthorized individuals, right? And that is where compliance comes in the aspect of guiding the organization, right, into various ways in which to reduce that incident from happening, right? So how do you identify your data? There's some form of accountability and generally, protecting the customer's rights at the end of the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Remy. I think it's very straightforward then. We have had it from both of your ends, and it's easy to understand. It's straightforward. Data breach, compliance. Data breach happens when there's no compliance in check, right? Compliance is like a regulation to ensure that data breaches don't happen. So they basically work hand in hand. So we're going on to the next question. which is, what are the most common causes of data breaches in organizations today? So, I mean, when Timmy Lane was going, she mentioned a couple of organizations that have had data breaches in the past and even the repercussions for that. And we can see more and more of this. I'm not going to call any company names, but we see, I mean, for those of us in the cybersecurity space, we get feeders from certain news bodies about data breaches that has happened and how large it was. So it just begs to question that what are the most common causes of data breaches across all sectors? So over to you, Remy.
Yes. So the most common ones we see a lot. So the first is weak passwords. People tend to use either their names or date of birth, to create weak passwords, right? And another is phishing attacks that we get. So that can be either through email, via phone, like a call or an SMS message, right? Another is misconfigured cloud services or misconfigured configuration as a whole, right? People tending not to use the best practices when doing their configurations, right? So those are the most common types of attacks that we see. And I think most importantly is what we call the insider threats, which is the humans. Humans are regarded as the weakest link when it comes to data breaches. Thank you.
Thank you, Remy. That's just puts literally everything into brackets, as it were. Bumi, do you want to also chip in here? I mean, with your expertise in the industry as well, can you maybe highlight some of the most common causes of data breaches in organizations that you've seen from field experience? I don't know. Is Bumi on this session?
Yeah, I think there's something wrong with his microphone. So I was
Wrong.
going to add
Okay.
to what Remy said there. When it comes to the role of the insider threat, I think there was a survey about 2 years ago that revealed that the highest cause of data breach was because someone sent a confidential email to the wrong recipient. Right, still talking about the insider threat. Now, it's very important for us to also know that people could make mistakes. Data breaches could be caused by mistakes, not necessarily just hacking or whatever. It could just be someone making a mistake to send a confidential document or attachment or information to someone that shouldn't have received it. Like you go to Outlook, you type in Sandra, and then you see like 3 different options, but because you're in a hurry as a human being, you pick the wrong person and send to them. That has led to unauthorized what's it called, access of information by someone else. Someone has seen that information that they shouldn't have seen, so that's already a data breach. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Chris. I think the last one is something literally everybody on this call can relate to. In fact, just this morning, something like that happened with one of my partners, and they erroneously sent an email to me that wasn't meant to be for me, and I could see their numbers on that solution. It's none of my business anyways, but I pried a little. Okay, so we can see that data breaches happen in whatever forms, even in the teeny tiniest little of ways, as easy as a mistake, right? Sending confidential email or document to an unauthorized person, excuse me, right? It could be, I mean, there are different names in this region. There's a Shola with SOLA, there's a Shola with SHOLA, right? So not taking note of teeny tiny things like this can make information accessible to unauthorized people. Then we have the unpatched vulnerabilities. Some of us are guilty, myself sometimes, of not updating our systems and apps when due. Right, we wait till the last moment, or sometimes we even bypass it entirely because we feel like, okay, the new OS updates might delay or truncate the speed of the app or whatever service that we are on. Meanwhile, most times those updates are necessary. I mean, there's a reason why the OEM of those apps churn out those updates, right? Weak passwords were also guilty. Some of us use repeated passwords for our Temu accounts on Netflix or Amazon Prime and all of that. Repeating same passwords or even using like your date of birth, your favorite color, favorite food, right? There are things that one can easily use as password for ease of it, but then realize that these are easy ways for data breaches to happen in organizations today. And of course, you know, once one person is compromised, it's just a matter of time before the whole organization is compromised. Thank you so much for that. We'll move on to the next question, which is the NDP, right? Since we're all in the cybersecurity field, we all are familiar with the NDP, the Nigerian Data Protection Act of 2023. So the question is, what is it about, right? This whole meeting compliance being trying to conform to regulations, right? So what is NDPA? What is the NDPA Act about, and what are the penalties for lack of compliance? So I don't have certain things in place as per the NDPA's recommendation or requirements. What are the repercussions for that? Over to you, Remy.
All right. Just like the NDPA, you know, on a global scale, we have different types of compliance regulations, and I'm sure a lot of people are conversant with that, like the PCI DSS, the HIPAA for healthcare, the the GDPR, which is, you know, for Europe and all that. So we in Nigeria, we have our own, which NDPA stands for the Nigerian Data Protection Act of 2023. So it was enforced from 2023. So it's the framework that is expected for every organization that is using any the personal data of Nigerians, either in Nigeria or outside, right? It's used for any organization that houses any of our data, right? So it ensures that how you handle the various data, personal data, the protection of our data, how do you send it, how do you promote it, how it is used internally within every organization that, you know, is using the Nigerian personal data. So from our name, our NIN, how do those various organizations handle them, right? So that's framework, that is what the framework is all about, right? And when it comes to the penalty, right, part of the penalty includes either paying up to 10 million naira or 2% of the gross annual revenue. So whichever one is higher, right, if you are found guilty of data breach. And also in extreme cases, they could add 1 year imprisonment for the most senior cybersecurity person in the organization. So you can see that with the governing body, which is the Data Protection Commission. They are the ones handling it for Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. That sounds like some really hefty fines, right? I mean, up to 1 year in prison. I'm sure there's nobody that is charged with data protection in any organization that would want to fall victim of this. So the NDPA is the Nigerian Data Protection Act, like she's rightly said, and they do have repercussions and strict penalties for lack of compliance. And that is why we decided to have a session like this to educate, you know, individuals that are charged with data protection in organizations on what they need to do and how they need to do it so that they don't fall victim of this, because they will not be taking maybe the CISO or, you know, the MD. They're going to take the data protection officer of each of the organization that is found guilty of not being compliant. And in most cases, the CISO also doubles as that person. So you have to be, you know, you have to be careful. You have to ensure that data that is being kept in your organization is being kept accurately. Next, the question I have here is, how does non-compliance with data protection regulations impact an organization financially and reputationally? So I'm as a company, I'm not compliant with data protection regulation. So what is the impact of that on my organization, both financially and as per my reputation? Chris, please. Or would that be Remy?
Okay. I think I will answer this in the context of what Remy just said about the NDPA. Since we're in Nigeria, we're dealing with the NDPA, right? So NDPA expects everyone to file their annual data audits on or before 15th of March every year. So I'm assuming everyone on this call has already filed the annual data audit to the NDPA. If you haven't, reach out to Ha-Shem immediately and start working it out. That's very important. Now, non-compliance means, like Amy said, there are some hefty fines that you have to pay. Of course, it would mean that someone will have to go to jail, and those fines are huge. There are examples of at the beginning, Tim Lane gave examples of organizations that have had to pay huge fines. We've seen fines as high as 500 million naira in Nigeria last year. And I think it was 2 years ago, we met with the NDPC. That's the commission in charge of enforcing this, yes. And they told us they were planning to expand, 10 times, over the last 1 year, over the next 1 year. That means they're getting bigger every day. So they are finding more organizations. Of course, they have a lot of money to expand and grow. So it's going to become something that's very serious. It's already very, very serious anyway. So those fines are there. There are also legal issues where customers could take you to court because the NDPA want to ensure that you handle data of Nigerian citizens carefully. You do all your best. You put encryption in place. You put least privileged approach in place. You ensure that only authorized people can see, certain information. You decide how long information can be kept and stuff like this. So if you're not enforcing them, customers could take you to court. I think it happened in Ghana where someone got in an Uber or was it a Bolt, and then they found out that the driver who picked them up was using their own profile. They're using their picture and everything, and the person took the organization to court, and they got a huge pay of maybe $100,000 or so, maybe even more than that, right? So we're seeing this happen in Nigeria, and other African countries. So that's also big. Also, when there's a data breach, it affects customer trust, right? Customer tends to not want to deal with you. They'll probably move to your competition. And sometimes some of these breaches are also engineered by competition, right? So it moves customers away. It also affects your share price. If you're listed on the stock exchange, it will drop, sharply for that period of time. And if you're not careful, if you don't approach it properly, it might not, bounce back, right? So that's also there. So there's a huge cost. It keeps piling up. The cost of a data breach is really, really piling up. And when it comes to non-compliance, you get punished by the NDPA. You get punished. The board gets punished. The personnel gets punished. The financial bottom line also gets punished, and then the reputation suffers a huge dent with your customers, with your suppliers, with your partners, with your board members. It becomes a very, very serious issue for everyone. So it's always best for us. Like I said at the beginning, compliance is not exactly, solution to cybersecurity, but it helps us follow best practices to reduce our risk exposure as much as possible. So by being compliant, we can reduce the pain of the organization's exposure to cyber threats as much as possible. Over to you, Sandra.
Thank you very much, Chris. Remy, do you want to add anything on this? It's a bit straightforward anyways. What you want to go? Just a line or two?
No, I think he has pretty much covered everything. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Thank you. So the cost of non-compliance is like a ripple effect, right? Once you're non-compliant and there is a data breach, it goes on and on and on, right? From the hefty fines to having legal issues with your client to the loss of customer confidence, right? One thing I've learned over time is that brand loyalty is actually what sells even more than the solution or that you're preferring, right? The fact that you are loyal to a brand, it means that you've been trusted over time to deliver the services that you are being maybe something that are being procured basically. So brand loyalty is very important. And then when you start having your customers not trust that their data is saved with you, it then basically means that they start looking at alternatives. And competition, I mean, once you're offering a service or a product, right, competition is always out there waiting for incidents like this to happen so that they can capitalize on. Most of the times you see them, immediately they've raised a campaign around that breach, and they are pushing maybe some sort of very hard message to the markets, right? Making people, I mean, even if they've been loyal to you for years, the fact that you have an ongoing legal issue as regards data protection within your organization, they will start entertaining conversation they wouldn't have, right, if something like that was not out there. So it's very important because it's a ripple effect, and that is losing more money on the fines, on the possibility of even being jailed, on the loss of your stock market, your stock value, even the loss of investor funds, right? So you have investors, foreign investors, silent partners are putting money and they just trust that you will do the business, and then they are seeing cases like this with the legalities and all of what it comes with. It basically would have a very detrimental effect rather on your reputation as an organization and even financially. So moving on to the next question, can you explain how Sophos MDR helps in preventing data breaches? Now, the topic is the cost of non-compliance, right? Providing preventing rather data breaches with Sophos MDR. And now we're saying Sophos MDR can help us. So the question is, how does Sophos MDR help with preventing these data breaches?
Thank you. Yes. So MDR actually stands for Managed Detection and Response, right? So in Sophos, we combine humans, which is the human expertise, and the use of artificial intelligence. We use a lot of advanced technology in order to be able to detect, investigate, and respond to threats in real time, right? So it's a situation of where we are not waiting for when there is an issue. So we are being proactive about guarding your environment, right? It will provide some form of comprehensive threat elimination because we are always a step ahead. We are not waiting for when there is a problem. We are ensuring that everything sits right. So that's where the threat hunting comes into play, ensuring that anything that looks off, right, or suspicious is investigated. And with artificial intelligence, it helps to easily analyze what is going on in minutes or in seconds so that the team can concentrate on what is more important and ensuring that response is fast and efficient, ensuring that the data breach does not become something serious and very costly.
Thank you, Remy. Chris, do you want to add to that? Explain, just let us know how Sophos MDR help us in preventing data breaches.
All right. So for us, we have a lot of experience with handling customers who are compliant with various regulatory standards, and we provide the controls required at the minimum, right? So controls like DLP, for example, to prevent data leakage. Data leakage could lead to data breaches easily because when there's credential leakage or stuff like that, for example, attackers could then leverage that to then, have more information about the organization and then go into full mode that will lead to a proper data breach that is usually punished. Of course, data leakage can also be punished because anything that reveals customer details, which should be kept confidential, could lead to you being punished. So we have this experience. So we have created tools that at the minimum would help to reduce that exposure as much as possible. So DLP is one of them. Application control is one of them to ensure that you don't use unsanctioned application on your office laptops, for example, that could lead to data leakage easily. We have web control as well to control the websites you access. Certain websites also take more information than they require from you. That's also there. We have I mentioned app control. We have USB control as well. That's peripheral control, so that you can prevent people from using USB flash drives to copy data from the devices, or even from running applications on USB appliances or peripherals rather. Right. So we have all these control mechanisms in place that help you to meet compliance and also help to reduce data leakage as much as possible, which could then lead to a data breach. Now, for data breaches themselves, we have a host of advanced protection mechanisms. We have the ways to protect from advanced persistent threats. We have ways to protect from exploits. We have anti-exploit. We have anti-ransomware. That's because the thing with ransomware is when we see a ransomware attack, usually happens in two phases. Before the ransomware attack itself, there's also data exfiltration, where the attackers would have been able to steal confidential data and then export them or upload them to the cloud, before then running a ransomware that then ask you to pay for both the cost of getting your files back from the encryption and also getting them to delete the files, right? So we know about all of this. So we put all of these mechanism in place to prevent these data breaches. Now with MDR, we go a step further to become proactive so that we don't wait for a ransomware attack. Like I said, before a ransomware attack, there's a full attack queue chain that would have happened, and then the ransomware attack itself is the tip of the iceberg. A lot has happened underneath. So those things happening underneath are the things that can be caught earlier on using detection and response, like MDR, for example. So we can catch these activities at the early stages and stop them before they lead to a data breach where they would actually exfiltrate that data and then blackmail you, to pay around. So we call it double extortion, right? So Sophos MDR has been experienced enough to be able to detect this kind of activities and project where it's leading to and stop them as early as possible. Right.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chris. So for the MDR, like Remy rightly said, is the managed detection and response service. It's a 24/7 service that Sophos refers to organizations where they provide proactive threat hunting, detection, and even remediation for organizations. So it depends on how you want Sophos to work with you, right? So we have it in different tiers. I'm sure we'll talk about it later on, but I just wanted to highlight what MDR means. It's a service that helps you do 24/7 active threat hunting and remediation. So you have people manning your SOC at every given point in time. 2 a.m. on a Sunday, you are hit, you are not hit, but if you have like a threat actor trying to act on your account, on your environment rather, you have people actively there on standby manning that. During public holidays, odd hours, we're humans, right? So you might fall ill, whatever it is. Sophos MDR just basically ensures that round the clock, 24/7, 365 a year, you have somebody manning your environment. And I'm sure you're not alien to the word MDR, because I know literally every OEM out there is speaking about managed detection and response, which is you outsourcing your cybersecurity, overlooking your cybersecurity, right, to be ensured that there are no loopholes. And like Chris and Remy has rightly said, with the integration of third parties that we have on the Sophos MDR, with the human expertise that we have, with the adoption of artificial intelligence, advanced technology, it helps us do proactive threat elimination, investigation, detection, and response. And I'll move on to the next question now. So how does Sophos MDR now ensure compliance with various data protection regulations? We know what Sophos MDR is. We know what compliance is. We know that there are regulatory bodies like the NDPA, right? And we know there are repercussions for it. So the question is, how do we marry all of this? How does Sophos MDR ensure that organizations are compliant with the various data protection regulations that we have out there today?
Okay, so for the MDR, we have custom built templates, right, that are in line with various compliances out there. So if it's the NDPR, if it's the healthcare, which is PIDSS, or the HIPAA, right, we have various custom templates that helps you to monitor such compliances. And, it comes with ready-made reports to ensure that you are following those configurations, right? It analyzes your cloud configuration settings against those compliance standards that we create, right? So basically, it will just ensure that you can meet those requirements without diverting so much resources in place. So if you need reports, maybe if you are in the healthcare system, for example, it has reports for HIPAA, which it's supposed to monitor some certain things, and you can use those reports to show that you are audit ready. If, for example, you are doing any form of internal audit, you can download those reports and it's ready in line with whatever standard, compliance standard you are working with.
Okay, thank you, Remy. Chris, do you want to add to this?
Follows from the previous question as well. So we have, like you said, we have templates already that can help you to meet compliance, which we've already created. I think another important thing there would be the audit trail, because when it comes to compliance, if, for example, there's been a ransomware attack or data exfiltration, and you want to prove to the NDPC, that you did the right thing, you followed the best practices. So you have to be able to show paper trail of you encrypting your drives, encrypting your files. So there has to be a record, an audit trail saying on this date you created this policy and you push it to X user, which is the user whose device was probably stolen or was compromised. So you can show that you followed all the steps, right? So that would then save you from the penalty because you've done the right thing. So, but there has to be an evidence that you've done it. So the auditor will be able to, show that you've met those requirements. So that's some of the ways that you can meet compliance, and we help you to we provide you the tools that will be able to help you meet the compliance. Also, in terms of detection and response, we have a whole incident management platform that tracks, the detection cases, and also the investigation, escalations, up until the incident is closed. So the entire incident management lifecycle, incident lifecycle is covered by the platform that we provide. So you can see who's assigned to a particular case, who has investigated, the case history, the case updates, the MITRE and CK framework, the tactics used by the attacker that have been compiled in that particular report, and then while the ticket was closed. So it shows the date and the time that it started and the date and the time that it was closed. So this entire life cycle is captured and also kept in the audit logs, where you can have that entire case history. So when it comes to compliance, you can easily show this to the regulatory bodies. This is what we do. This is how we investigated this, and this is what has happened. Also, in some cases, for those who comply with CBN policies, the OFIs, for example, CBN has a specific template for them as well. CBN could also release IOCs and say, this hash, search for this hash within your environment. If it's found, block it. So you have to block it on your firewall, your XDR, your SIEM platform, whatever it is. We provide you that platform to be able to do that as well, right? So to meet compliance with various data protection regulations, we have all of this in place that we currently use for, like I said, we have about 50,000 customers in our MDR, and quite a number of them also in Nigeria already that are benefiting from this. And we've never had any issue with any data protection regulation body at all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. Another thing I would like to add, just like the rightly said, is that Sophos has been in this business for donkey years, right? So we have studied what is required from all these regulatory bodies and ensure that it's embedded in this service. And that is why we can come out to say, assess it to us, let us help you manage, detect, and response on your behalf, and then even give you ready-made reports, right, and custom templates so that you can use that for your compliance. I'll move on to the next question now. What role does proactive threat hunting play in the effectiveness of Sophos MDR? Remy mentioned when she was talking about MDR and how it helps with data breach prevention that we provide proactive threat hunting. So what role does this play in the effectiveness of Sophos MDR?
All right, so when it comes to active adversaries are advanced hackers that have access to a variety of tools. They usually work in a group, so they are also mostly sponsored by nation states. So that means we're talking about 40 to 50 people. You have a common goal of bringing down your organization, right, and getting money from you, right? So before because ransomware is the most common gotcha attacks that we see. Before they get to the point where they deploy a ransomware, a lot would have happened, right? There's an entire, kill chain that is various steps, various techniques that will be used the reconnaissance to action on objectives, right? So if you can catch them at the early stages, you can prevent the breach from happening, and you can prevent the damage from being so severe, because the longer they stay, the more damage they will do and the more you will have to pay, right? And the more the likelihood that there would be a breach of compliance. So what we do with proactive threat hunting is we don't wait for protection tools to give us alerts, and we don't wait for detection tools to give us detections, right? So we go ahead of the attacker to kind of like predict them or preempt them. This is what the attacker might try to do. So we try to play the bad guy, play the devil's advocate, and go ahead of them to proactively hunt for those threats. So we look for certain indicators that may not even be happening right now. I'll give you an example. So if something that's happening, let's say Hong Kong or in Singapore, in the financial institution, we can proactively check for that here in Nigeria, because these are not patterns that we recognize. They don't have antivirus patterns or whatever, right? They've not been created yet.
Signature,
So we'll practically
yes.
look for those signatures. So practically look for those indicators, not signatures now, indicators of such activities happening on all of our customers' network proactively. And in some cases, we've been able to prevent, major attacks that could have been devastating. So we call that threat hunting. We are hunting for threats that have not even taken place yet. The attackers, they're not known. Their patterns have not been seen in that particular region or country, but we go ahead of them to preempt that they might come in and try to look for any of those signs. So by doing that, we're able to make the MDR more effective. This is something that most security operation centers can't do, because this requires a high level of skill by the cybersecurity expert or the analyst, or the malware researchers working on it, right? It requires a very high level of skill. Also, it requires a high level of integration with the threat intelligence team that's working on it. So this is not something that junior analysts at the SOC can achieve, right? You need an extra level of skill that can match the active adversary to be able to achieve this. So this is what we do with proactive threat hunting. So that way, we can ensure that we stop those threats before they cause you real harm. Over to you, Sandra.
Thank you very much, Chris. That's very, very straightforward and informative. How proactive threat hunting actually is even the bane of Sophos MDR. So we don't have to wait till we see active indicators of funny activity happening in the environment. Sophos MDR is proactive, searches for it, look for certain indicators that are not yet happening yet, right? That is not yet a full incident, and stop it before it causes any harm. And then the next question is this, because since we're all in the cybersecurity space, I remember I went for an event early last year, and we had about, I think 2 years ago, actually, tell you how far back, and we had about 6 OEMs speaking in that environment, and it just seemed like we were rinsing and repeating each other's speech, right? We all came to talk about one thing: managed detection and response. Right. So every OEM in the cybersecurity space now is talking about MDR. MDR is the present and the future of cybersecurity. Now, the question is this: with Sophos offering this service and many other OEMs offering it, what are the key features of the Sophos MDR that differentiate it from other managed detection and response services? So we have other OEMs preferring this same service. So the question is, why is Sophos different? What is the unique thing that Sophos has that gives them that advantage over other OEMs in the same space?
Thank you for that, Sandra. So apart from the basic key features of 24/7 monitoring, threat monitoring, the use of AI to accelerate our internal security operations, one of the other things we provide is a full-scale incident response at no extra fee, right? Just as you mentioned, we can have some OEMs that tell you they provide a level of managed detection and response, right? But they just only do some form of threat hunting. But when it comes to the issue of responding to the current threat, right, they come back and tell you, oh, you need to pay extra costs, right, for us to provide you the incident response and mitigate whatever issue you are currently providing. But with us in MDR Complete provides the full-scale incident response with no extra cost. Then also we integrate with other existing security tools you might have. So if, for example, you are using Microsoft in your environment, right, we can actually integrate very seamlessly with Microsoft and with other popular security, some other popular OEM security tools. So it's not a situation of where you now have to remove all the investments you've done previously, and we're not telling you must only use our products, right? We can actually work with other security tools, third-party tools that you have already in your environment, because the whole idea is for us to be able to have full visibility into your environment and provide you with the full-scale incident response should that be needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Remy. Chris, can you highlight on some other key features of Sophos MDR that differentiates us from other OEMs offering same service?
Yeah, so I think Remy pretty much, covered that well. Another thing for us is we have the full stack, right? We're not just an EDR or XDR company. We're actually an endpoint company. We've been a leader in the endpoint Gartner's quadrant, protection platforms, in the Gartner's quadrant for over 15 years. Since the inception of that quadrant, we've been a leader there. So we're really, really strong when it comes to the endpoint protection, providing you app control, web control, peripheral control, DLP, threat protection, file integrity monitoring, server lockdown. These are features that help to reduce the threat surface as much as possible. What this means is we reduce the noise that gets into the SOC, right? Because the major problem with SOC teams is noise and fatigue, noise fatigue, because they get a lot of false positives. Yeah, a lot of alerts they have to investigate and chase, and then it leads to burnout. And when your SOC teams are burned out, the attackers will be able to succeed, right? Because they're chasing a lot of false flags. But with the strong endpoint solution, you can reduce the number of alerts by up to maybe about 95%. Right, so you're not getting too much noise. Unfortunately, SIEM solutions are very, very noisy because the endpoint that's supposed to stop them at the early stages is not really there, right? Which is what gives us an advantage. So we can provide the full stack from protection to detection to response and recovery, right? And that is what really sets us apart from the other providers.
All right. Thank you very much, Chris. I would like to highlight on one thing Remy mentioned earlier when she talked about third-party integrations. I'm aware that some OEMs will ask for a rip and replace system where they will say, okay, for us to help you do this managed detection and response, you must use our endpoint, you must use our firewall, you must use our server protection, mobile protection, and all of that. But one thing the Sophos MDR works with, one thing we pride ourselves in is that we do seamless third-party integrations. So no matter the cybersecurity investments you've done in your environment, no matter the firewall, no matter the endpoints, and the rest, NDR, whatever you have in your system, we can integrate them seamlessly into the Sophos MDR, right? Collect logs from them so that we can actually give you the full-scale incident response as we have said we will. Another thing with Sophos MDR is that, excuse me, we do it end-to-end on your behalf, right? We can do it end-to-end on your behalf and provide you with a detailed report on what was done, how it was done, and even a recommendation on the best practices to take going forward. Right, so that way you can see everything we are doing. We operate a single pane of glass where you can see us and we can also see you. There are no hidden features, there are no hidden activities. It is more of a partnership, where you see everything, and like Chris says, it helps reduce the noise for even your in-house personnel, cybersecurity experts you have in-house. So the Sophos MDR so far has, we've done a lot in this market, and we seem to, in fact, we are doing a whole lot more than we even envisage, and we're just ensuring that organizations like yourself are on board with this. Okay. The next question I have is to ask, what is the measure of the ROI of implementing the Sophos MDR? Now, before I go ahead again, let me just quickly remind everyone that if you have questions, you can easily drop it in the chat box and someone will reply to you. And then if you need a follow-up conversation afterwards, the Ha-Shem team will be sure to make that happen. But for now, I want Chris or Remy to help me understand, help all of us understand, how do we measure the ROI of implementing Sophos MDR? So you're asking us to, you're asking organizations to outsource their cybersecurity needs to you, right? So how do we measure the ROI of those resources that will turn out to Sophos under the MDR service?
All right, so I think the elephant in the room is, Sophos MDR is basically SOC as a service, right? And in order for you to meet compliance requirements, you meet regulatory standards, you actually need to be able to do what we call continuous monitoring. That is the key point. You have to be able to continuously monitor. And that means you need to have a SOC in place, right? So we all agree that every organization must have their own SOC. Now, do you want to build your own SOC from scratch, or do you want to subscribe to SOC as a service with Sophos MDR? That's the elephant in the room. That's a big question now, which we need to address. So if you're to set up your own SOC, you need to have a couple of things in place, like your EDR, your SIEM, your SOA, your workflow, your connectors, network connectors, public cloud connectors, threat intelligence and stuff like that. You need to have these tools in place, right? And these tools are not one-off. You have to pay every year. It's annual recurrent fees as well. Secondly, a SOC is only as good as the people that are manning it, right? Not just the tools, right? So you can use various tools even if you want, but you need to have experienced people in the SOC. We're talking about 5 to 8 people, depending on the organizational size, and they have to be able to run shifts, because the SOC has to be run 24/7, 365. Most of us are built for 8 to 5 work life, right? Not after work hours. Unfortunately for all of us, the threat actors or the active adversaries mostly work at night. They start their work when we are closed for the day. So they work at night, they work on weekends, they work on public holidays when we are not working. So 90% of attacks happen outside of work hours, while only 10% happen during work hours. So that's a major issue. That means your SOC has to be able to run 24/7, 365. So you're already putting together, oh, I need to buy all these tools. I need to have these right people. Also the processes too, incident response plan, workflow processes and, playbooks and stuff like that. You have to tabletop exercises. These are things that you need to also run yourself. You need to pay people to do it for you, right? When you look at the entire cost of building your own SOC yourself and managing it yourself, as compared to you outsourcing it to Sophos to provide you the tools, the MDR, because MDR already includes XDR, EDR, endpoint, and everything. Connectors, all in, like Remy said earlier, the integrations as well. They're all part of the MDR, so that's also there. The technical expertise to be able to man the SOC to help you do proactive threat hunting, for example, detections, investigation, analysis, root cause analysis, and remediation, recovery, incident response. All of that are things that are done by human beings, which we will provide for you within the Sophos MDR SOC as a service, portfolio. So if you look at the two, the Sophos MDR service is a fraction of the cost of you setting up your own SOC. So it's really a no-brainer, and that is just one. Also, because we have Sophos MDR, if you have Sophos MDR complete, there's also a breach protection warranty of $1 million, right? So that gives you confidence that Sophos is going to do the right thing. Otherwise, Sophos is liable to pay up to $1 million in response cost if there's a major attack that causes you to lose your file, or you're having to pay a huge fine to regulatory bodies. So reduction in fines it's there. Reduction in data breaches, which means reduction in compliance-related fines, is there. We're going to reduce the OPEX because you don't have to employ staff to man the SOC, right? Or you don't have to employ additional staff to strengthen your SOC. So whether you have a SOC or you don't have a SOC, we can play in both ways. So we can help you so that we can provide the outsourced SOC, as it were, or we can provide SOC assistance to help your SOC teams, to become much more comfortable working with this incident. Also, we help you to manage your cybersecurity internally so that you don't have to look for external resources to do that for you. So that means at the end of the day, we're going to provide you huge cost savings And at the same time, we're going to improve your security posture. So when you're doing your assessment, if you've done your NIST assessment, you will score higher when you have Sophos MDR, because then you'll be able to meet all of the response, and remediation or requirements of those regulatory compliance and best practices. So that's how we're going to help you to reduce your ROI, which is easy for you to measure.
Okay, thank you very much, Chris. Remy, would you want to add or maybe highlight on any of the points Chris has already mentioned on the how to measure the ROI of implementing Sophos MDR for organizations?
Okay, I think I'm just going to say again, actually, if you look at the cost of the recurring capital expenditure that you would use, right, if you have your own SOC, right? So apart from the manpower, the equipment, these applications you need, right? Just even looking at the building, you need to ensure is available. For example, in Nigeria, you need to have multiple sources of power, right? Right now. So you can imagine having to put, apart from NEPA, you have to have the solar, you have to have the generator. So you can imagine the recurring cost of that. Then even the humans, right? The jackpot syndrome that we are facing, you've gotten the people in it. After a while, this security analyst sometimes might get a better opportunity and relocate and trying to restart that same process of getting somebody that is technically sound and an expert to manage your environment is another problem you will face, and that is one of the things that our managed service would help you solve instantly, right? You are not worried about things like that. So yes.
Thank you very much, Remy. That was very straightforward. I think that one thing everybody on this call can relate to is the JAPA syndrome, right? Where you have seasoned hands. So you have people join the organization, and then they're there for like a year or two, and you as the CISO, you're becoming confident that you have people manning your decks, right, and your incident decks, and then all of a sudden they're up and leave. And unfortunately, not many organizations can match the offers that they would get outside the shores of West Africa. So most of them they will leave. And then you come and do the cycle again, train, retrain, and again, the whole point of reduced noise. Another thing is where you have different firewalls, different endpoints, different solutions, right, with their different maybe kind of escalations, right? So if you basically have somebody seasoned in a particular OEM, cybersecurity OEM for the firewall, that person must be seasoned in the endpoint as well, must be seasoned in the server, must be seasoned in, other solutions as well. And it might be a whole lot, right? Having all the certifications, being up to date with all of those requirements of each of those OEMs. But with Sophos, right, with the synchronizing everything and then having us manage it for you, we already have people in-house. This is what we do. This is what we've done for well over 20 years. But you only have people in-house that this is their bread and butter, as it were. So outsourcing it to Sophos basically helps you save you from that headache, right, of being up to date with latest trends in the cybersecurity space. And we're moving on to the last question for today. Now, this question is to both Chris and Remy, right? What advice would you give to organizations struggling with cybersecurity resource constraints? So we know that there are constraints, we know that resource constraints that organizations have. The question is, how do you think they can go about these constraints?
All right. So first of all, whether you're going through resource constraints or not, the NDPA doesn't exactly care, right? So you still have to meet the regulatory requirements. Now, how you approach it is totally up to you. You have an option of, starting everything from scratch, putting out the capital expenditure and, paying all those upfront costs. You could do that. Or you could do it in a way that you can have someone provide you cybersecurity as a service. So what I would strongly advise is if you're going through resource constraints, you still have to be as compliant as your competitor that is not going through that so badly. You know, they have it all figured out, right? So how you have to do that in a very smart way so that you can leverage the resources available to you to be able to achieve compliance and also have peace of mind like your neighbor or even better than them as well, right? So it doesn't mean that spending a lot of money will give you better cybersecurity. No, we've seen that doesn't work. For you to really have peace of mind, you need to have the right people working with you. And with Ha-Shem and Sophos collaboration, you can get the best value for your money. So I would strongly recommend you look at Sophos MDR SOC as a service to help you provide you the tools that you need, the resources, the people, and the skills that you need, and also help you to cover the time that's required for you to do this 24/7, 365, because you cannot tell the NDPC that there was a breach because your SOC only runs 8 to 5, you know, and that you can't afford to run it 24/7, right? So you have to be able to provide this service 24/7, 365. So I strongly recommend that, you know, MDR should be, you know, top priority for you as well. I don't know if Remy wants to add something to it.
Yes, Remy, any last words? Advices on how organizations struggle with cybersecurity resource constraints?
Yes, I think Chris has covered the most important parts, so that you can, it's important you try and achieve what you want to achieve, which is in terms of security posture, in the most effective way, and that is with the managed service, providing you everything you want, just in an instance, right, without having an extensive internal resource, right, to achieve that. So I feel that will be one of the quickest way and approach to be able to achieve both the security aspect and the compliance aspect, while you as the organization focuses on the core the core business objective.
Thank you very much, Remy. Thank you very much, Chris, as well. It's been quite an interesting conversation so far. Excuse me. It's been quite an interesting conversation so far. And for organizations struggling with the resource constraints, I would just like you to remember that the NDPA, like Chris rightly said, they are coming for literally everyone. So as much as I know management can, you know, take their time or probably drag their legs, it is on us to ensure that organizations are compliant, because again, when they come, when you're found guilty of being non-compliant, nobody's going for the MD or any other person on the board. They're definitely going to be picking the CISO, whoever is in charge of ensuring data compliance in the organization. So while you're struggling with these resource constraints, please also always bear in mind the repercussions that can befall you and the organization, so that you can use that as a justification to have more resources even assigned to you. I think that is the end of our questions for today. We have gone ahead to touch quite a number of topics. We've talked about how the cost of non-compliance, how it can affect your organization financially. It can also affect your reputation as well, and how it is important that you prevent data breaches. So I'll hand over to Timilei now. And the time being, I'm not sure I saw any questions, that is interesting.
Okay, I think there's a question in the chat.
Okay, so Mr. Gabriel asks if you have any material we can send to him alongside the recording. Yes, so we can send you some data sheets. We can also we will send you the slides, or better still, a more comprehensive slides that has more details, because this is mostly just the questions alongside this recording, so that you can have those information readily accessible to yourself and to everybody that has participated.
Okay, thank you very much, Sandra. Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Remy. Thank you, Sandra, for this valuable, insightful, and informative section. So there's no question in the chat box. I will assume everyone got all their questions answered while this section was going on. Okay, so in the absence of none, we'll just begin to bring the session to a close. The feedback form is currently in the chat box, so you can just kindly help us with the feedback form to give us more insight on how to, for our upcoming webinars, and how to tailor our cybersecurity solutions and topics to you. So in a nutshell, we have other subgroups of Ha-Shem. We have the Ha-Shem Academy, where you can, it's a learning institute that you need to learn every IT. The Learning Institute, in partnership with professional industries bodies, delivering quality training in tech. So any professional certification you want to take, Ha-Shem Academy is there for you. Cybersecurity solution, Microsoft, Ha-Shem Academy is there for you. We also have the Tech Tracer Plus class, where we have tech discussions. We make it fun and relatable to you, and we are available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Also, you can follow us on our social media platform to stay up to date on all the tech discussions, conversations, and topics on cybersecurity, and how to strengthen and strengthen your cybersecurity posture. Thank you everyone for joining us today. If you like a personalized conversation with our organization or team, please send us an email by discover@hashem.com. It's currently in the chat box. Thank you everyone for your time, and we'll see you in our next webinar. Please do have a great day.
All right. Bye, everyone. Have an
Bye,
amazing day.
everyone.
Yes, please. Bye.
Bye.